We are doing a bit of a surprise live today. Kind of wanted to jump in and talk about or answer a few questions and that sort, but we're going to do something slightly different today because I have been getting a lot of questions about it. And so this isn't necessarily the full all encompassing or anything, but it's kind of the start of a couple of videos we'll look at going forward here. So today I'm going to put on one of these Dexcom G7 sensors or continuous glucose monitors. So we most often use these for individuals that have diabetes. Freestyle Libres are the ones that are a little bit more popular at present, but the Dexcom G7 I'm personally a fan of for a couple of different reasons. But yeah, so it's continuous glucose monitor, you slap it on, it measures and monitors your blood sugars ongoing and all of that wonderful jazz. So it's a pretty cool device overall. Really like them, think they're pretty cool, all that wonderful stuff. So why I want to do this, because a lot of people are asking questions and freaking out about blood sugar levels and all the other wonderful jazz that kind of comes about it. So yeah, that's kind of the quick and the short of it, if you will. So I'll quickly show you how to put it on. And obviously there's like an accompanying app and that sort of thing. The thing that I really like about the Dexcom is that in comparison to at least the Freestyle Libre 2 and the Freestyle Libre 1 is you don't need to scan it. It just automatically uploads the data to your phone via Bluetooth, which of course is very cool. On all of those wonderful fronts and jazz and stuff. Obviously, it comes with like all the paperwork and that sort of thing if you want more info. Has a nice little patch. Usually they have like an alcohol swab or pad in here, but maybe not this time. But anyways, so this is kind of the Dexcom encompassing where the sensor is and that sort of thing. It's an all-encompassing device so that you can basically strap it on. It'll pop the sensor on for you, and yeah, you don't have to worry about like needles and seeing things and all the scary things that come with that. So usually with the Dexcoms, we usually recommend back of the arm in particular, but you can apply it to other parts of the body. It'll say that there isn't as much data or evidence and that sort of thing in terms of accuracy, which to some degree is true, but it's just more we haven't tested it. And yeah, so the way that this is basically working is that there's going to be a little capillary tube that goes up inside of my arm that is going to measure the interstitial blood glucose. What that specifically means is that the interstitial is like the space between your various tissues and that sort. So it's not into your bloodstream or into like a vessel or anything. It's kind of removed from it. And so via the process of osmosis and all those wonderful things, sugar goes from the bloodstream into the interstitial fluid and vice versa, back and forth. So there can be a slight delay in terms of what the blood sugar level currently is in the bloodstream versus what's happening in the interstitial fluid. So there can be slight mismatches. It shouldn't be anything significant. Your body's pretty good at keeping things in homeostasis and in balance. So yeah, it's a little capillary tube that just kind of hangs out there and records and reads and sees what the blood sugar is doing. And it takes a reading, it's not every second, maybe every minute or something like that. Maybe more frequently. I can't remember exactly the numbers. Anyways, so what I need to get is in my medical stash here. I do not have an alcohol pad. Oh, I do. Excellent. So usually it's recommended that you kind of clean the surface of wherever you're going to apply it with like an alcohol swab, just because what we want to do is we want to get it stuck as well as possible. And so the human oils and stuff like that we all have and such on our skin is it'll affect how well it sticks and that sort of thing. And this is supposed to stay on for a full 10-day period. So we want to make sure that the area is good and clean to ensure it goes in and stays on but indefinitely or for a good time, I guess. So that is that. Let that dry off a bit. It does come with a little patch here that you apply over top of the sensor, and that kind of helps hold the sensor and everything like that all in place. and prevents it from falling off prematurely, just because like the little sticker that it comes with on the outside is a little bit not the greatest, I guess you could say. Sweet. So we just screwed off this bottom part. Now we've got everything in here. This little spring action right here is what you're going to press and compress into your arm. So until this is compressed, this button here won't actually fire and release the sensor and everything that's inside of there. So I don't know if you can kind of see it. There is indeed a little needle there. Can you kind of, yeah, you can kind of get it. So there's a little needle there. And that needle is obviously going to go up, but it's going to get quickly retracted, and wrapped around that needle is that little capillary tube that we talked about earlier. And then obviously there's kind of the patch and everything, and you'll see the actual sensor itself when it's on the back of my arm after I do it. So all looks good. We're quite happy with it. And all we really do is kind of put the thumb on the button and try, put it in there. Sweet. Yeah. Now she's stuck on there. I don't know if you guys can kind of see it. It's stuck there. Couple of things I guess with it is you want to try, if you can, and put it like into some fattier tissue versus like muscle. Muscle when the capillary tube's in there can be like a little bit irritating and not the greatest. I think I got it kind of more into the fat of my tricep there. So if it goes in there, perfect, all the better. And that way it just doesn't get irritated. But I always recommend kind of like pushing onto it just to make sure that it's getting nice and good and stuck. Hopefully, yeah, it's not hanging out too much or anything. That shouldn't like fly off and get caught on things, but it ultimately will to some degree, and that's just the pain in the butt that is. Not much you can really do about it. So once you've kind of like mashed it down and everything, we want to grab our little patch here. Take off the little white pieces, all that protects it. And then again, this is hard with a camera. Holy cripes. Sweet. So now apply that just like you did the sensor and just mash everything down. Kind of goes over the sensor and again keeps it and holds it on there so it stays in place for you. And then once we've kind of mashed everything down enough, one side or the other. Voila. That's all there is to it. And again, mashy mash and all that jazz. So yeah, so now the sensor's back there. I'll have to register it after I get off this live on my phone via the app and stuff like that. But the way you do that is you either punch in this code right here, or you use the little scanny thing there. And that allows you to kind of input the information so that it connects to your phone with that specific sensor. And then it starts to read your blood sugar levels after about, I think it's 30 minutes of kind of like a warm-up period. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the Dexcom sensor, the applying it and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully that kind of gives you some thoughts and perspective. But it'll be a good little experiment for me to kind of show you if I eat certain foods or what have you, and just kind of what my blood sugars do over the course of a day. So my most recent blood work, I think my A1C was like 4.6 or something like that. So on average, my blood sugar levels are definitely on the lower range of things. And I have been having some struggles with like hypos lately where my pancreas gets a little overactive and drops out my blood sugar levels. It always recovers, but I do get symptoms of like headache, kind of like I'm not really with it, like I'm almost like out of body experience. It's very strange, and get very hungry, like really hungry. So I've tested my blood sugar with like the finger pokes before, and it comes up as like at that point like 3.6, 3.5. So it is definitely tanking and going down. Again, my counter-regulatory system kicks in because I don't have diabetes, I'm not on insulin and that sort, and so everything comes up yeah, kind of brings it back into place where it is, and usually I have a little bit of something to eat at that point in time. But yeah, it's been happening randomly. Usually I find this will happen when my training really ramps up, and I've been training quite intensively as of late, not only doing more weight training and that sort of thing, but also cardio and that sort. So it's going to be kind of contributing in that side, but we'll see what my blood sugars do, and we'll eat some candy, Oreos, all that wonderful stuff with the Christmas holidays here, and show you what happens and how your blood sugar does go up and down over the course of the day. It doesn't just stay nice and flat. And so Karen Green, I think applying the overpatch is the hardest thing about applying CGM, trying to see the back of my arm. Oh, totally. Actually, I think that patch, well, it was a little bit challenging, but having like the camera as my mirror definitely helped. Stelo is pretty much the same. The Dexcom Clarity app seems to interface with the Stelo. Nice. Actually, the Dexcom, they had like a separate Clarity app, and now they've switched to just, it's all in the one all-encompassing Dexcom G7 app, thankfully, because I'd have to keep getting people to like download both apps, and it was a pain in the butt. So I'm very appreciative that they've done that. But once I register this via the app and stuff like that and get it all uploaded, basically I set it and forget it, and kind of go on my way at that point. So that is that. So that's the Dexcom G7. I'll definitely be kind of keeping you guys updated on where things are at and such like that. I got a couple more minutes here. So what I'll do is I'll answer a couple of YouTube questions that come up, and yeah, we'll kind of see where we're at. So someone said, I'm on 20 milligrams of citalopram daily. Can I take Qsymia? So Qsymia is, oh cripes, what is that? Phentermine and topiramate? Yes, phentermine and topiramate. It is, works on a slightly different pathway and regulation of things, but still an effective agent and medication that people utilize. And so yes, technically you can take citalopram with Qsymia or citalopram with topiramate and phentermine. You'll definitely want to be monitored by your healthcare providers and that sort of thing, because they all act in similar ways, can lead to similar side effects, and can potentially worsen all of those side effects and stuff like that. So want to keep an eye on that, and yeah, just kind of making sure you're monitoring and working with your healthcare providers. Another person on a Metformin video I did says, I'm on Metformin for years. It's really good with my type 2 diabetes, but no weight loss for me, maybe because I still eat the same. I mean, when it comes to losing weight and that sort of thing, we do need to eat less food. You need to be put into a calorie deficit to lose weight and such like that. And so if you're not making modifications and changes to your dietary patterns, well, yeah, you're not going to lose weight necessarily if you're still eating the same amount of calories. Overall, metformin is not super effective for weight loss. It can increase satiety hormone called GDF-15, but how much of an effect that is, in the studies, it's maybe a couple of kilos, so nothing really great. What the cool thing is that we're finding with the GLP-1s is that we maybe are getting a synergistic effect with using metformin and a GLP-1 together, and not so much with the weight loss side of it, but other kind of inflammatory type benefits overall. So it's becoming more and more studied, and very, very fascinating what is occurring, what's happening. So someone says, what happens when you get high off of Ozempic? I mean, if you're getting high off the Ozempic, I'd be questioning, is it actually Ozempic that you're getting? Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. There's no mechanism that would make you high at all. Yeah, I would get that looked at. So, someone said with Mounjaro, they lost 25 kilos in 6 months. Holy cripes, that's a lot of weight. Congratulations. And no longer need asthma inhalers and lansoprazole for acid reflux. It's a wonderful drug. Yeah. So certainly asthma can be worsened sometimes when we have extra adiposity or extra fat tissue, puts extra pressure and stress on the chest and such like that. And certainly with heartburn, again, pressure, stress pushes that acid reflux and can contribute to it. So losing weight can certainly be a bit problematic, or not problematic, but beneficial in managing one, if not both those conditions. So glad you had a good experience. Yeah, sweet, that's awesome. And then Bezzy, Bezey. Why the hell do you have white flashing every time you make a cut to the video? Shake my head. You know, I sometimes, I don't intentionally necessarily, but I sometimes love that it seems like I've made this video just to irritate people like Bezzy, or whatever. And it's just like the most random things that people kind of like will point out, and it just drives them nuts. Yeah, brings me just like a teeny tiny bit of joy sometimes because it's just hilarious, and clearly they're a little angry person. Jane Marks, snoring and sleep apnea improve also. Ditto. Yeah, you're exactly right. So having that extra pressure off your chest and that sort of thing, sleep apnea and snoring can definitely improve. Sometimes there can still be structural abnormalities where you can lose all the weight in the world, but structurally there's still going to be some kind of blockage. Similarly with age is a major risk factor for sleep apnea. So just the older we get, the muscles around our neck and stuff become weaker. So you could lose weight and say no longer have sleep apnea and redevelop it even though you didn't gain weight, but just because you got older, unfortunately. Joseph V. Hey, Dr. Dan, I've been using the Contrave hack and now putting the naltrexone in time-release capsules, but I'm finding it to be less effective even before putting them in the capsule. It's been about 4 weeks. So, yeah, I mean, I would be looking at maybe your time release capsules and that sort of thing, kind of depending on what's going on there. Dosage, of course, might also need to be adjusted. And sometimes with the immediate release naltrexone, we sometimes get like a spike where it goes up, but then falls and gets out of the system more quickly. Whereas a sustained release kind of doesn't give you that same spike and is more flat over the course of the day, which makes the drug last longer, but you might not notice as much of a kind of potent dampening down effects, if you will, sometimes. So, yeah, good question. I would kind of play around with some things, some further variables, and see what's ultimately going on. Karen Green, what average blood sugar is healthy? Good question. So it depends on the context of things. So on average, we would like to see blood sugar readings, you know, when you wake up first thing in the morning to be less than 6, even then less than 5.8, 5.6. That's more ideal. Certainly if you're at 6, not necessarily a bad thing, but we're starting to tread into that territory of there's insulin resistance and maybe some prediabetes. In terms of before a meal, yeah, we want to try and hopefully have it less than that 7-ish range, again, less than 6. Post a meal, probably, 2 hours after a meal, going up to 8 maybe. Again, it's going to vary person to person and how much of a spike and stuff they have and what kind of food they ate and so on and so forth and how active they are. But generally our range for people who have prediabetes and diabetes, generally between 4 and 7 is kind of where we want to keep things around. But again, even people without diabetes, you can still get rises beyond that and sometimes even fall less than that 4.0. Not necessarily that there's anything wrong, it's just whatever you ate in the current circumstances and situation that you have going on. In terms of A1C, general recommendation is having an A1C of less than 5.7%. Now, A1C is like your 3-month average of your blood sugar levels. It's not always, it's not the same as like your blood glucose at a given time. So A1C of 5.7 doesn't mean a blood sugar average of 5.7 millimole per liter. And so that's kind of something to keep in mind there. There is differences, there's various calculators and then that sort of thing. And yeah, that's kind of where it's at there. Translate units. Oh yes, all of you Americans, and you're not using the proper system. I'm pretty sure it's 40 deciliter American blood glucose converter. Glucose milligram per deciliter. Yeah, so anywhere from like 70 to 126 would be kind of the milligram per deciliter for my American folks out there. Yeah, so 40 to 120, 40 to 100, somewhere in there whereas Canadians and everywhere else in the world, the 4 to 7 is kind of what we're aiming for. Gabriella M, hello doc, best sites to inject sema. I usually recommend the abdomen, maybe the top of your thighs, maybe the back of your arms. In reality, there's no difference in terms of the kinetics or anything like that. Some people will report that when they switched to injecting in their leg, suddenly their symptoms disappeared. However, what's more likely is just their body got used to the medication, and it just so happened that they switched their injection site at that point, and voila, their body was used to the medication, they switched their injection site. So they had no side effects because their body was used to it, but they make the connection, well, I switched my injection site, so that's what led to no side effects. So, yeah, something to keep in mind there. Karen Green, I'm still mad the US didn't go metric. Me as well. In Canadian, we have kind of like a weird mix of the two. Like we'll use for labs like the millimole per liter and the metric system, and then we all like speak in pounds and inches and that sort of thing. So it depends on the context of things. It's really, really irritating, and yeah, it gets very challenging at times. So yeah. But anyways, guys, I gotta bounce. So that's kind of the Dexcom G7 sensor. Stay tuned for more info on blood sugar readings and that sort of thing, and what you need to be and not need to be concerned about. There's a lot of hype, obviously, and a lot of garbly goop out there that is just awful. So we'll dispel some myths, and yeah, everyone have a great rest of your Sunday. All right, cool. See you later.